This is part 3 of our teacher professional development workshop looking at reading instruction and interventions. And as mentioned previously, understanding how the brain creates meaning with print is an imperative prerequisite for designing effective reading instruction and reading intervention. So let's look at some strategies based on this model. First of all, questions to think about. What strategies can be used to develop the semantic queuing system, and how do we teach students how to use this system? In the same way, what strategies can be used to develop the syntactic queuing system, and how do we teach students to use this during reading? And finally, what should be the duration of writing activities for reading? And we shall answer these questions, hopefully, in this next session. But let's take a look at the semantic queuing system. Here we're looking at close and maze activities. A close and a maze is a sentence with a target word missing, or a word that has choices. And I'll show you this in a minute. Let's see, I'll show you that in just a minute. And this target word should be abundantly obvious. We're not trying to trick the students, we're trying to develop neural pathways, to develop automaticity, so they automatically jump on both sides of the words when they are reading. We're developing the ability to say blank and to use context. So let's take a look at this, and this is actually from a slide I used with a student. I would teach her to say, if you don't know a word, say blank and skip it over it. Let your eyes look for clues. And we would use this, the elf blank and hit his head. Look for clues. What do you think? Yes, it's an action. The elf blank and hit his head. There's a letter clue. And yes, the elf fell and hit his head. This is an example of a close. And the answer should be abundantly obvious. And we do, I would say, 6 to 12 of these a day. And the duration of this activity should be anywhere from 4 to 8 minutes. And let's show you some. These are very blank garden pots. Skip over it. Which word makes sense? Yes. And again, 6 to 12 of these, 4 to 8 minutes in duration, real quick. We're not teaching. We're developing the ability to use semantic queuing systems while reading. That is a maze. A maze has either 2 or 3 choices within the targets. And this is a close, has a blank or just a first letter clue. Bob took his dog for a, and it should be abundantly obvious. We do these rather quickly. We go through them. This is why I like using PowerPoint, because number one, I can save it. But number two, it enables me to go through 6 to 8 of these rather quickly. 6 to 12 a day, as I said, 4 to 8 minutes. You can use them to reinforce letter sounds and patterns, and I'm going to show you what that looks like in just a minute. Also, you can use them as pre and post reading activities. Simply design sentences related to the story about to be read or the story or text that was read. The syntactic queuing system. These are writing activities. And writing activities should be short, anywhere from 3 minutes to 10 in duration. And generally it involves a pre-writing, you draft, and share. There's 5 steps in the writing process: pre-write, draft, revise, edit, share. For most short activities, pre-write, draft, and share. Now, students should be able to have a choice of writing topics to the greatest extent possible. And we want them to describe their ideas and their experiences. This is authentic writing. Teacher writing prompts, those are scaffolds and should be used as little as possible. And in an authentic writing activity, students can take it as far or not far as they want to. We never tell a student, go back and add some more detail. Instead, we ask students to say what they want to say. And if it's short, then we ask them to say something else. That's very empowering. We also embrace temporary spelling. Here's an example of that. And note, temporary spelling does not lead children to spell incorrectly. Absolutely not. It enables them to get writing to express their ideas. And by the way, all children can write starting the first day of kindergarten. They may rely more on picture clues than word and letters. They may have to have teachers dictate to a teacher to a greatest extent possible, or they may need to dictate to teachers, but students can create meaning with print. Learning to write, like learning to speak, is a developmental process. So short activities as part of a reading activity and writing activities can be used as both pre-writing and post-writing activities. You are limited only by your imagination here. So let's look at some strategies, especially for struggling readers. For early and struggling readers, they can get overwhelmed when you say we're going to write a paragraph about something or we're going to write, period. You see it in their eyes, oh my gosh. So I have found if you say we're going to write just one sentence today, it keeps them from getting overwhelmed. Sometimes when I'm working with students in a journal, struggling writers, I will set a minimum of 2 sentences as a minimum. Now, the goal when using these in writing, or using writing in reading, the goal is to develop the syntactic queuing system. All right? We will develop writing ability other places. We will focus specifically on writing in other places. And when we focus on writing, then we focus on the 5 steps. But when used in reading, they should be simple and quick. And the goal is to get students to express their ideas using writing. That's how you develop syntactic queuing, the ability to use grammar in word order by getting students to use grammar in word order. That's how you develop the syntactic queuing system. So writing enhances reading, reading enhances writing. They go together. You should always be writing during your reading class, especially for struggling readers. All right, that is 1 sentence, simple idea, or 2 sentences. But say up front, all right, we're going to have you write just 1 sentence today. And here's a question I get asked. A lot of struggling readers and writers have trouble with handwriting. They don't want to write. Many prefer using the keyboard, and that is fine. And there's some tricks that you can do there to use the keyboard. Remember, rule number 2, don't frustrate or humiliate your children or your students. So you want to provide the scaffolds necessary to keep them from becoming frustrated. Language experience activity. Oh, this is the best. I use it a lot with emergent readers, preschool, kindergarten, and 1st grade. A lot with struggling readers as well, and second language students sometimes. The language experience activity or approach is to have an activity first or an experience first, and students dictate to you what they want to say. And we usually have a 2 to 5 sentence minimum here. As they dictate to you, you write it down, either on a poster, on a computer, on a whiteboard, or something. When I tutor, especially tutoring online, I write using the computer, 24-point font, so they can see the words appearing as I'm writing. This is very important. They are reading the words as they appear, as they speak it to me. And we save these so they can practice reading these another day. And the joy of this is they are practicing learning to read using words and concepts and experiences from their lives. They're not learning to read using someone else's words or experiences. They're learning theirs. Once they've written the story, and you can do this, by the way, individually, pairs, small group, or large group, once they've written the story, We reread it until fluency is achieved. Usually 2 to no more than 3 times it takes for them to be able to read it without any stumbles fluently. Then the last one is to do analytic phonics lessons, analyzing words they know. For example, there's a word here that starts with a m sound. Can you find that? And they'll find Monday. Good, good. There's a word here with a d in the middle of it. Can you find it? Day, Monday. Good. That's an example of analytic phonics, analyzing words that they see in print. The second one. The third, here's an example. I did this with a first grade student, and every tutoring session, we'd read the story they read last time, and then we'd write a new story. Notice the 2-sentence minimum. As we went on, she wanted to start writing more than 2 sentences, and often we'd have 3, 4, and 5 sentences. So we'd practice reading the old story, words, concepts, experiences from her life, and then we'd write a new story. And she could be successful. She could be successful. I had a struggling 3rd grade reader. She's reading about the 1st grade level, and we did the same thing. Now, here's the joy of this. Not only do you practice reading, with her we didn't do analytic phonics, but we just practiced reading. It enables you to make connections with your students. And this enabled me to get to know her to get to know me, and she began to trust me because she found I was interested in what she had to say. I listened. I was interested in her life and her experiences. So I can't say enough about the language experience approach. When do you stop? Well, when you think you need to. 2nd grade, maybe. I don't know. This was a 3rd grade student who was reading at the 1st grade level, so it was very appropriate, but I didn't need to do analytic phonics with her. We would practice until fluency was achieved. Sentence mix-up is a form of writing. You're looking at grammar in word order. What you do is you use simple sentences, 3 to 5 words if possible, and you show the sentence, and then you cut that up into individual words, and you mix them up. You can do this a variety of ways. You can have 3x5 cards already prepared, show the students the sentence, and mix it up. Or show the sentence on the board, give them the cards, and have them put them in order. Or it's called sentence strips. They tell you a sentence, you write it on a strip, you cut it into individual words, you mix it up, and they practice putting the sentence back together. And you can save these, and you can use them from lesson to lesson to practice, or from year to year to practice. You can also use these to reinforce letter sounds or patterns. If I want to reinforce the short I sound, if I'm teaching the short I sound someplace, I would simply include short I words in my sentence somehow. And as I'm going to show you, you can include capital letter and punctuation clues if you want to. These are great pre- and post-reading activities. Simply create lessons related to the story, or ask students to write a sentence related to the story and cut up their sentence. Now, here's an interesting one. This is called Be the Word. Have the sentence, mix it up, give different children words in that sentence. They come to the front, they have to put themselves in order. You tap them on the head, and when you tap them, they say their word. And that's how you read their sentence, by tapping them on the head. Here's an example of reinforcing the short I sound. Now, again, when I did tutoring online, I couldn't have them manipulate stuff. So I had to figure out how to do this online. And I would have sentence mix up this way. I would show them a mixed up sentence and say, tell me when you know what it is. So we'd read the words fit, don't, pants, these. And usually by here, they could figure out the word. And we'd do 3 or 4 of these rather quickly. I would say it would take no more than 4 or 5 minutes, briskly paced going through it. And again, the goal is to develop the ability to use syntactic clues or cue the brain into what that word is. With older students, of course, you can just present the sentence mixed up and have them write the correct order underneath with older students. But yeah, definitely use with older students. Keep it fun, keep it short, briskly paced, absolutely. Sentence combining. This is a research-based grammar strategy, a lot of research to support this. It can also be used in writing and reading, almost everything can. Here, you provide two short sentences, and students have to combine them while retaining the meaning of both, retaining the ideas. And yes, it's grammar and word order, but also metacognition, because students are saying, does this make sense? Does this make sense? All these activities, by the way, sentence mix-up, that involves metacognition because students are saying, does this make sense? Let me give you an example. Billy went home, he was sad. Billy was sad and he went home. All right, that's the idea. Two short sentences, and keep it quick. Do 3 or 4 of these a day. This is an activity you can do, by the way, in small group or pairs. It's the conversation that takes place between students that enhances learning. They must combine them while retaining the initial meaning. Now here, I'm reinforcing the ill phonogram that I was teaching, simply included an ill word in each sentence. Again, pre and post reading activities, design sentences related to the story. Instead of doing that stinking comprehension worksheet that does absolutely nothing to help children comprehend, it's just a remembering worksheet or a look back in the story worksheet, create activities like this that can actually help them become better readers. You don't need that expensive workbook if you have these strategies. Throw it away. Fanboys. These are the connecting words for Anne Nor. Fanboys. She is. You get the idea. And if you really want to be crazy, you can go with 3 sentences and ask them to combine. And I sometimes ask students to combine them using as few words as possible. Sentence alteration. Oh, this is a fun one again. Use sentences related to the story or what's going on in students' lives or whatever. Say the same thing using different words or a different word order. And I'm going to show you some of these in just a minute, but this is a grammar strategy as well. Pre and post reading or related to a letter pattern. And again, pairs and small groups are great because it's the conversation. Now, when I do this with 4th grade and older, or maybe 3rd grade, I sometimes make it a contest. Let's see how many different sentences you can come up with that say the same thing. And it's the conversation that takes place that is lovely. And yeah, you can make it a game. It's fun. Everyone can be involved. When I do this, I like to have some that I have prepared and see how many of them come up with my sentences or different ones. As an example, Randy packed his lunch bag. Randy put his lunch in his bag. Randy packed his bag full of lunch. It was lunch that, you get the idea. It takes 1 or 2 times and students become pretty good at finding these alternative ways of saying the same idea. Sentence alteration. Sentence alteration. Here's another example, and I'm reinforcing the short I, simply including a short I word. Pre-post reading, design sentences related to the story, students' lives, maybe a science unit or whatever you're studying. Whatever you're studying. All right, journal. Journal writing, learning logs, literature logs. Use a journal to record students' thoughts and ideas. It could be related to writing. In my reading class, I don't like to use workbooks. You can get everything you need in a workbook and more by simply buying a spiral-bound notebook for 89 cents at Walmart or whatever. All right, they respond, they write their ideas here. Now, when I use journal writing, learning logs, literature logs, I don't let students keep them in their desks. I put them in a special place on a shelf, in a milk carton, or someplace, so they don't become lost or used for homework. And when it's time for reading class, I'll say, okay, let's get ready for reading class. Go ahead and get your learning log or your literature log or whatever, and they can go and get theirs from from the space, and they always return it to the shelf or place afterwards. Now I'll show you some of the writing ideas, but it could be something like describe an interesting character, describe an event as a pre and post reading activity, describe what you think will happen, make a prediction, and we'll be talking about that during the comprehension portion. But as students are writing, either as post reading or something else, we want them to share. Remember, most writing activities pre-write, draft, and share. And you can share a variety of ways. Turn to a neighbor and share your idea. Or in small groups of 3 or 4. Trade with a neighbor and write your ideas. What were you thinking about? What went through your head? What did you like? What do you want to know more about? And when I do the trade with a neighbor and write, I always have some prompts on the board. Here are some ways to respond. We can't expect that students naturally know how to respond. I usually have 3 or 4 specific prompts that they can use. If I'm going to have a discussion, either in small group or large group, I give them the question and I have students list their thoughts before discussing, list their ideas before moving into small group. And so remember, writing is thinking, thinking is writing. And it's a good way to organize your thoughts before a discussion. Literacy logs. Again, you could respond to a story, describe a character, an interesting event, find 3 adjectives used to reinforce grammar. And I like the journal or literacy log because it's multi-level. Everyone can succeed. Everyone can take it as far or not far as they want to. Learning logs, journal entries, everyone can be successful. Oh, priming pictures, this is good. Simply find a picture and you ask students, what do you want to say about this picture? Or what's happening here? And I try to find pictures with children about the same age to make this connection. Or I take pictures of the community or school and bring those in and ask students what they want to say here. And they can say 1 sentence, 2 sentences, whatever. And you're limited only by your imagination here. You can give each student a picture on a piece of paper if you want, on a computer, or you can save them. You can save them and they become stories as students write about what's on the picture. I call this a priming picture. It primes the writing pump. And of course, you can save these and use it for reading practice in this class or another class. And students are able to use picture clues as well as word clues to help them. If you have, of course, they can work with pairs or small groups. You can share them. They can trade pictures and read someone else's ideas. You're limited only by your imagination here with most things. Adopt and adapt any of these strategies. Okay, we learned about strategies to develop the semantic queuing system, close and maze, and the syntactic queuing system, writing. The duration of writing activities for reading, 3 to 10 minutes. Short, briskly paced, move from one thing to the next. All right, that's the end of part 3. The next one will look at methods and direct instruction.